aspiring filmmaker right now is you're in the best country in the world to get started as a filmmaker, because virtually nowhere else is there so much support for first-time filmmakers. It's really, really great. And so yeah, I think it's a good time to get started. It's a hard time to keep going, actually. Getting started part's better though, than it used to be.
When you're getting, like, we have a lot of opportunity to get government funding through Telefilm or the Harold Greenberg Fund, and there's a bunch of like government funding, like organizations out there that will help you in Canada make your film. But you know, it's taxpayers' money as well too. So when you're coming to them with a movie like Hobo with a Shotgun that is full of violence, and there's even a scene where there's a school bus full of children who get torched by a flamethrower, that puts up alarm signs pretty quickly for them, because they're going to have to, people have a problem with it. They're going to have to answer to the taxpayers that they put their money towards a school bus full of children being torched. But I think, I don't know, I'd be interested to see what it would be like if someone, like in Hobo with a Shotgun, it's like this live action cartoon that's just like out of this world and so like unrealistic. I would like to see what it would be like for someone to, well, it'd be like, I think for us, like we made that like short film Tree Vans to show like, how we were going to handle the violence and how we were going to handle violence towards children. And that really helped to like show like, the light spirit that we had doing it. I guess it'd be interesting to see if someone really wanted to do something like that, that was really
CSI.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, but there was a burning bus scene in Ensemble, but that's, it's played so like, real and true. But sometimes it can be tough. Like we could have made Hobo with a Shotgun like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago if it weren't for that like school bus scene in our movie. We had so many doors closed on us just because of that scene. But we kept with it. We felt it was necessary for our story, and we weren't going to back down for it. Luckily, we had a producer, Neve Fitchman from Rhombus, who he loved that scene and he fought for it, and he wouldn't let it go. So he fought for us to keep everything that we wanted to do. We didn't really have to compromise on anything other than just our budgetary restraints, but we were basically allowed to do whatever we wanted to do.
And again, things have changed from when I got started. There was, at least it appeared to be a very different mandate. It seemed like it was really about making great art, and not to say that art films aren't great art, but I think as time has gone on, Telefilm also recognized that they had to make some kind of return on their investment. So there is very clearly a different mandate now, and it's for better or worse opened it up to films like ours.
Yeah, well, like I said, like we had a lot of like boundaries to overcome with it. Like we did have a lot of doors closed on us at first, and we just kept persistent on it and just worked on it night and day. And now like I'm starting to like hear like like Hobo did really well, and it did really well in Canada, and I know like Telefilm are very proud of it, and it just was put on like the TIFF Top 10, which is kind of crazy for a movie like Hobo with a Shotgun. But I've been hearing stories, like I've been hearing from filmmakers who have their films in development that, they told me that Hobo is like kind of like open doors for them to talk about their projects and get like developing for them. And so I'm hoping, that we'll see some more films come out of the genre in Canada. And I think we will. I think we're going to see more and more. I've been hearing about them more and more now, so.
The movie would be a disaster. I'm talking of making a creature is just very hard. That's why it was an incredibly difficult film for me. It was just the creature, because it had to be perfect, and we didn't have that much money, and relatively speaking, and that's why my hair went gray. But because the lesson I took from it was everything had to go wrong in order for it to go right, and I found that consistently in making movies, that one finds oneself in a situation where it seems like the worst possible scenario, and then at the end of the day, it actually ends up being a blessing in disguise.
I think for filmmakers, it's just, you got to be true to who you are. And I think for me, a lot of my filmmaking comes from my inspirations come from my childhood. And I'm definitely like, I'm a kid of the 80s, and I grew up on 80s cartoons and high concept ideas. '80s action and horror flicks and sci-fi flicks. And so like whenever when I'm making a movie or I'm writing, it's like I'm always referring to the kid inside me. I'm always referring to that kid who was growing up reading comics and watching movies in my parents' back shed. And whenever I'm coming up with creative decisions, I always go to that kid inside me, and I'm like, would you dig this 13-year-old Jason? And then it's like, yeah, go for it. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. But I think you have to be true to like your inspirations and how how you perceive the world through like art that you've grown up with.
And, like if you don't have that fiery passion in you, then you just won't make a film. You'll never survive. It is purely, I've learned from experience and from my own experience, from watching my friends and other people who've been lucky enough to try to do this, it's just about persistence. It is purely persistence. There's not, that is, talent, all this, whatever that is by far probably a secondary kind of element to the whole proceedings. It's just got to be that you love it. You have to be driven by wanting to create something. First of all, thank God David Cronenberg exists, period, regardless of where he comes from, because he's so great. But thank God we have him because he's made it possible. He's sort of opened that door a little bit. And I'm hopeful. I was always hopeful when I was younger that we would have in Toronto a similar kind of independent film scene or something comparable to what Seattle had in the music scene in the 90s in Toronto as an independent film scene, because it seemed like all the ingredients were there. There was so much talent with the technology and so on. And I don't think it's fully materialized, but I sort of feel like it's on the cusp of happening. Like I work a lot with students from Sheridan, and they're just so talented, and they have, because it's a new generation that has those sort of pop culture influences. I think you're going to see I could imagine a sort of a quote unquote genre explosion here in Canada. So I think, yeah, if anything, like the great thing about David Cronenberg is he opened the door.